something that we are attempting to do is to come back into harmony with our God. And therefore, to learn to do this, we look into the scriptures, we look to see what the circumstances that was prevailing with those that are mentioned in scriptures, so that we might be vitalized and therefore come back to our God Yahweh with a new and vigorous mind to be obedient. Because of our disobedience, it has allowed the circumstances to fester to where it disengaged us from righteousness and allowed us to go into darkness. But because now that we are coming back into harmony with the Spirit, it would allow us to go into the light. I'd like to open this up by saying a prayer, and that we will enter into our lesson that has been prepared for us. Yahweh God, we thank you and we ask you for your guidance and your blessing. May the Spirit rest upon each and every one of us, the spirit of obedience. Yahweh God, who is God, for there is none like you. May we remember you in all that we set our hand to do. May we call upon your name. May we make mention of these things, but Yahweh God, with all that we mention, may we be doers of the law, not just talkers of it. But may the spirit of obedience rest upon us. Amen. I'd like to start and enter into 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles, I'm going into give you an understanding of the circumstances that is so prevalent in the world today, and not only into the world, but into what we must be doing, because our forefathers have already done these things, and therefore, in them participating in these things, it has caused them to really do well, whereas their children that left these things have fallen short. I like to go to 2 Corinthians chapter 30. I like to start at verse 20. And Yahweh hearkened to Hezekiah and healed the people. And I'm coming back to, that was verse 2 Chronicles chapter 30, verse 20. I read 20. I'm going to 2 Chronicles chapter 30. And I'm starting at verse 18. For a multitude of the people, even many of the Ephraim, Manasseh, Hezekiah, and Zebulun, had not cleaned themselves, yet did they eat the Passover otherwise than it was written. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, the good Yahweh pardon everyone that prepared his heart to seek Elohimah, Yahweh Elohimah of his fathers, though he be not clean according to the purification of the sanctuary. And Yahweh hearkened to Hezekiah and healed the people. What I'm saying is that Hezekiah wasn't a magician. He wasn't doing magic. It said he prayed. He literally prayed to Yahweh, because there was a pending circumstances that was against them, because those that would partake were not clean. And he prayed in the earnesty of his heart, being a righteous man. And Yahweh heard him, and there the people was healed. So I want to go to this 2 Chronicles chapter 31. 2 Chronicles chapter 31, verse 20. And it says here, and thus did Hezekiah throughout all Judah, and wrought that which was good and right and truth before Yahweh his Elohimah. And in every work that he began in the service of the house of Elohimah, in the Torah, and in the commandments to seek Elohimah, he did it with all his heart and prospered. So he did these things, and Yahweh prospered him because of his honesty, his sincerity, his righteousness to carry out the things that was prescribed in Torah. Wow. And therefore, as it says here, he said, because he did these things, it prospered him. I like to go to Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 29. Deuteronomy 29. Deuteronomy 29, verse 9. Keep therefore the words of this covenant, and do them, that ye may prosper in all that you do. He said, keep these things so that you may prosper in all that you set your hand to do. It also says in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 2, it says exactly how the blessing shall come upon you. It says, and all these blessings shall come upon thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy God. In other words, you don't have to look for them. They're going to automatically come upon you. Because when you keep the commandments of Yahweh, you draw this to you. You make the circumstances occur. You don't have to look around and say, is it going to be? He said, no. He said, it will pursue you. It says, and all these blessings shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So when you humble yourself, see, you are superior people. Mm-hmm. And therefore, Yahweh God don't want you to be arrogant. This is like when you look, when Elijah Muhammad, he took all those people from the prison. Mm-hmm. And these were the radicals. And as they were radical, they finished. Because they were too arrogant in their pursuit. They were too aggressive. And therefore, he took radicals and it radically ended. Now you see the brothers on One West. They're radical. They have so much discourse. There's no harmony with radicals because everybody wants to be a boss. So you have to have the temperament. The Torah teaches a temperament that is relative for you to progress. You can't progress. When Solomon was building the temple, Yahweh said he gave him peace. How can you build something in turmoil? In nothing. You can't build a family in turmoil. You can't even build your life in turmoil. You can't have peace with your neighbor in turmoil. So Yahweh God, in keeping of the commandments of Yahweh, he gives you peace. Mm-hmm. He allows you to know that if you're keeping the commandments, that this is what has been prescribed in Torah, that's what you should look for. It says that they've made the righteous sad, whom I have not made sad. And therefore, because the righteous was sad, because the righteous didn't understand their value of the Torah, the value of their righteousness, and therefore they became sad. It also says, and we want to understand this so that we might grow. Let's go to Micah. In the book of Micah, we come to a part in Micah that Micah tells us, Micah 4:12, but they know not the thoughts of Yahweh, neither understand his counsel, for he shall gather them as a shaft onto the floor. Yahweh God, who is God, that is Micah chapter 4, verse 12. It says, but they know not the thoughts of Yahweh. In other words, what is the thoughts of Yahweh? Because if we're going to keep the commandments of Yahweh, Yahweh God has dealt something so beautiful for us. He's going to teach us how he thinks. Absolutely. So that we can come into harmony with him. You understand? And this is the beautiful thing of Yahweh God, to do this. And therefore, that's why he says in Isaiah 55, verse 8, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, say Yahweh. Yahweh God is putting everything in place. He says, your thoughts are not my thoughts, nor your ways my ways. In other words, if you're going to sit down, let me teach you how to think about me if you're going to think anything about me. You understand? And therefore, even when we look in the book of Job, it was Yahweh God became very displeased with the men that conversated with Job because they said things that was not pleasing to Yahweh, to his character, and to but Job did. Job understood something, and therefore when he related it to them, Yahweh was displeased that they themselves did not take it to heart, but found opposition to the circumstances that Job was going through. And therefore, Yahweh God made a statement to them. And he said that Job what? Job spoke correctly of me. He said, Job spoke correctly of me. And if you read the dialogue that was put in or talked about with Job, you would say to yourself, how could anybody mistaken what God is about? How could they have mistaken this? And the only thing that you could come up with is that Yahweh is revealing himself to whom he reveals himself to. If Yahweh God does not want to reveal how he thinks and what he moves, you'll never find out. You understand? So when we read this book, we must read it being humble. Because see, this is not on the intellectual basis where people believe that they can read. This is on a spiritual basis by which if Yahweh wants you, if he opens you up. And Yahweh says to him, and it was so that after Yahweh had spoken these words unto Job, Yahweh said, Eliaphis, the Tishmanite, my wrath is against, my wrath is kindled against thee, and against thy two friends. For ye have not spoken of me the things that is right, as my servant Job has. And he was angry. God said, if you're going to speak again about me, speak right or don't speak at all. There's a proper way of the deliverance. That's why he said, no one consider the thoughts of Yahweh. If you can't think of right about him, don't think about it at all. This takes understanding that Yahweh has to give you. You might see with your eyes. You might taste it with your mouth. Touch it with your hands and never really understand the true purpose. So as a servant to your master, you don't have no thoughts to discern the circumstances of the job. Just like he told what? He told what's his name? They'll come to me. He said, go down to Nineveh. And he said, Jonah, he told Jonah, go down to Nineveh. And Jonah said, look, all you're going to do is forgiving them. God, God said, I don't have to tell you what I'm going to do. I told you to go do something. Now you're going to tell me how the outcome going to come. You ain't make these people. You don't make the sun. Your rationalization is unacceptable. And therefore, go do the job. Right. You understand what I'm saying? This is important that we as servants of Yahweh, for that Job 42 verse 7, as being a servant of Yahweh, you don't think, you do. That's why he said, lean not on thy own understanding. If he wanted you to think, he wouldn't give you rules and regulations to make it easy. Yahweh is the king, and being the king, if the king tells you to go do something, if he makes you, he becomes totally responsible for the outcome. You understand what I'm saying? So it says in Isaiah 14 verse 24, he says, Yahweh of hosts has sworn, saying, surely as I have thought in my head, so shall it come to pass. And as I have proposed, so shall it stand. Yahweh said, this is how it's going to be. It ain't going to be no other way. You ain't going to put any other way that you may prescribe it in your own mind. It ain't happening. Yahweh is making that sure. And he says, this is the purpose that is proposed upon the whole earth. He didn't say world, because world is people.
Right.
What is proposed upon the earth automatically affects the people.
Absolutely.
You understand? When the devil came down, he said that it was a circumstance that he was going to propose upon the world, which is the people.
Right.
And therefore the people affected the earth by their what? Scheming, conniving, mistreatment. And they involved a circumstance, because see, the devil has to make an atmosphere by which he induces and brings about the circumstances that is seductive through intoxication of wickedness. And he does that. You understand? So he says here, and this is the hand that is stretched out upon all the nations. See, when you start dealing in color, you're going to make a mistake.
Right.
But when you're dealing in nations, you can't.
Right.
Because in a nation, you may have a variety of colors.
Right.
But if everybody come from a nation, a tribe, or a group of people, Yahweh is covered. They either at one end of the earth or the other. And Yahweh said that he has prescribed the circumstances for all humanity. And the circumstances that he prescribed for all humanity disannulled it and went the other way. What did he prescribe? Let's go to Genesis chapter 12. And therefore, he has put it down, and this is why people stumble and fall, because it has already been written. Genesis chapter 12, starting at verse 1, and Yahweh has said unto Abraham, get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great. And thou shalt be a blessing, and I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curse thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. That's the way it goes. You are the light of the world.
Yes.
The light, when they subjected you, the light went out.
Absolutely.
No matter what we would have done to ourselves,
Right.
if the nations had not participated in the circumstances that has evolved to this day, God would have blessed them.
Yes.
If you go into Psalm 2 to Psalm 83, they plotted. The circumstance you see in the earth today was what they participated in. And it has come down to this day. And what you see is not this our own. When Rome went up into Jerusalem and sacked it, they brought about a circumstances that has been chaotic to this day.
Absolutely.
And they'll tell you, I didn't do anything. The history will tell you, your ancestors, and you are a partaker of the crime.
Yes.
Because you perpetuated by, if you know a crime has been done, then you must settle by doing that which is right.
Right.
Even once David had found out, because it didn't rain in the land for a certain length of time, because of what Saul had did.
Okay.
So David inquired and said, well, why hasn't it rained? And he said, well, Saul had did wrong. So he had to amend that.
Right.
And so when they came up, he says, well, we want so many of his sons. And as soon as they killed his son, the curse was, oh, Yahweh God is a great God.
Yes, indeed.
Even when Joshua was going into the land, and the guy said, well, get all the old things, because they were supposed to kill everybody within a particular vicinity. And when they came, they said, oh man, we came a long way. They had their old shoes, their old bread, and they told them, we came a long way. We just came to show y'all glory. Instead of them inquire of Yahweh, they didn't. And when they went on, they found out that these people was in the vicinity. But by the very token of their agreement, they couldn't touch him. They couldn't touch him. By the very utterance of the words that came out of their mouth, they was bound. And I'm showing you, we want to know the thoughts of Yahweh. Yahweh is a great God. Yahweh don't go back on the things he said. He says in what, the 89th Psalm, he said, I will not alter the things that have come out of my lips. So, we in the image of Yahweh God, the things that have come out of our lips. Yahweh is the supreme ruler. He's the only one that can supersede his own law. He's the only one. No one can hold Yahweh into what Yahweh don't want. Do you think that the covenant that we broke, that we can tell Yahweh that he has to be the person to carry out the words that come out of his mouth? No. We broke it.
Yeah.
But what did he say? He said, Israel. Now, come on, let's talk it over. Come on. This is, the law could not show compassion if it showed utterly punishment.
Right.
The law was there to show the compassion of God through your errors.
Absolutely.
And therefore, in the errors that we participated in, we made one mistake. We totally left him. Instead of coming back asking for mercy and begging him and making our acts more acceptable, we became agitators of righteousness.
Ooh, that's deep.
You understand what I'm saying? We agitated, we poked at it.
Ooh, that's deep.
Therefore, Yahweh said, look, if I continue to forgive them, all it's going to do is make it worse. It's a wound that will never heal. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give them the best whipping they can get. I'm going to send them off the continent. This is the transgression. This is the only transgression that you will remove off the continent. All the other transgressions, you was on the continent so you could regroup. He said, I'll fix them. So he moved us off the continent. We ain't never been able to get back together. But Yahweh said he has a plan. That's why he said no one considers my thoughts, how I'm going to do it.
That's right.
And when we read this book, we find out how Yahweh's going to do it. And we as his children, and we're children of the light. And that's this was the Torah, is the light. See, this is why it tells you, but I won't get into that, but let me continue to show you that Yahweh God, what is he doing for us? Let me go. Yahweh God, Isaiah 40. I want to show you what Yahweh is doing for us. One, and he has to do this for us because we all messed up. What is he doing? He said, comfort ye, Isaiah 40, verse 1. He said, comfort ye, my people, said Allah. See, he wants us to relax.
Amen.
Because, man, we have been all messed up.
Absolutely.
He says, speak ye comfortably to Jerusalem. He said, now, make the voice, tone it down, make it acceptable and agreeable. Don't be in opposition to be so ready to have friction into you wrong, I'm right. Let's just harmonize with each other. Even if we have a disagreement, let's be able to talk because we've always disagreed. Let's try to, in our disagreement, agree so that we can have dialogue.
Absolutely.
So he's saying, comfort. He said, speak comfort. He said, and cry unto her. He said, cry unto her. Tell her, you don't have no more warfare for you. Just sit down. Don't get no guns. Don't get no weapons. Don't talk about you got to get into the martial art to kill. If you're going to do it, then get in it for exercise. For your warfare is accomplished. And he said that her iniquity is pardoned.
Thank you.
For she has received of Yahweh's hand double for all her sin. So he said, man, this is over for you. But one thing you got to do is just relax. If I can get you to relax, I can carry you through the storm. But what's happening with you, you always want to rush things. You want to make it harder when it should be easier. And therefore, doing so, you cause the turmoil to occur that I have no desire for it to happen. So when we go to Isaiah 51, Isaiah 51, Isaiah 51, Yahweh says, verse 12, I, even I, am he that comfort you. Who art thou, that thou shouldest be afraid of a man that shall die, and of the Son of Man, which shall be made as grass? He says, man, don't be afraid of them. I'm comforting you. I'm making it all work out for you. I want you just to relax, because the circumstances is not going to be as it's been prescribed for you where you have been punished. Your punishment is over. All you got to do is relax. And listen to me, because I'm going to tell you what shall befall you. As it says in Isaiah 42, verse 9. 42, verse 9. It says, Behold, I form things. Behold, the former things are come to pass, and new things do I declare. Before they spring forth, I'll tell you of them. Yahweh said, before these things come to pass, I'm going to tell you. So when you read this, you're entering into the mind and the purpose of your God. He's going to tell you. He says, the other things have passed, but these former things, I'm going to make sure you know about it. You understand? It says, Yahweh God has said in the same chapter, 42, verse 15, I have long hold my peace. I have been still and refrained myself. Now will I cry like a traveled woman. I will destroy and devour at once. So we can see what's happening in the world now. Storms, earthquakes. Yahweh said, and we go to some.
Lady's car slipped off the thing and crashed down on the floor and killed her, and her husband just escaped. They was in a parking lot, like on the outside, and they just slid out the parking lot down to the ground and crushed her to death, and her husband escaped.
It's all kind of things are taking place because Yahweh is whispering. He says, and he's told him, he says, he has long time held his peace. He says in Psalm 12, chapter 12, verse 5, for the oppression of the poor. You see they're oppressing the poor.
Yes.
He said for the oppression, for the sighing of the needy. They have made people needy. Yes. And the people are sighing, they're uttering through their moaning.
Yes, Lord.
And see, we want them to continue because, see, the Ruach is hearing us.
Yes.
See, he says, now will I rise, said Yahweh. I will set them in safety from him that puffs at him. So Yahweh God in the Torah is setting us in safety, in a safe place, so that he might do the circumstances that is befitting them and giving them their reward. And therefore, Yahweh God is saying something to us. I'd like to begin to open up our eyes to what it says in the book of Proverbs, because these things are so true. I'm going to Proverbs 1, starting Proverbs 1 at verse 20. Proverbs 1 at verse 20. It says here, Proverbs 1, verse 20. It says, wisdom cried without, she utters her voice in the streets. She cried in the chief places of the concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she uttered her words, saying, how long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in scorning, and fools hate knowledge. Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit upon you. I will make known my words unto you, because I have called and ye refused. I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded, but ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I will laugh at you. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. He said, I will mark when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh as a desolation, your destruction cometh as a whirlwind. When distress and anguish come upon you, then shall ye call upon me, but I will not answer. Then ye shall seek me early. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. For they that hate knowledge and did not choose the fear of Yahweh, they would none of my counsel. They despise all my reproof. Therefore shall they eat of the fruit of their own ways, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. But whosoever hearkens unto me shall dwell safely and shall be quiet from fear of evil. And this is why Yahweh sent this in the earth, so that we might know. And he says this to us, because there's a message for those that is a message for. And this is why you have a teacher to teach you, so that you may understand those messages.
Absolutely.
Because you want to know the thoughts of Yahweh.
Yes.
You understand? The reason why those in the world are so they have become so indoctrinated, because they go to church every Sunday. They make sure they did. And he tells the same thing. They're indoctrinated to get up and make sure they get there on time. And therefore, I want to, it says here, Isaiah chapter 3, verse 10.